Thank you for auditing Professor Sky's Record Review, the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor whose wife told him before he recorded this, I don't need to do silly stuff to get people to like my videos, okay? So I'm going to be reviewing the album Bright Green Field by the band Squid, so I don't need to have an Admiral Akbar action figure in my shirt, okay? I don't need to ask her to make me calamari for me to eat on screen. But I can't help it. I can't help myself. I will eat calamari at some point, but don't worry, I'm going to tie it in to the way this album makes me feel. And if you like calamari as much as I do, you will know that is a good sign. Now, this is one of the most requested albums in the history of this channel. I think it's because I have become something of an accidental chronicler of the current post-punk moment. I am drawn to this kind of music, and it seems to me that there is something happening. There appears to really be a movement that we can actually start to define. Now listen, I am a French professor, that is my full-time job. I'm not a music critic, but I'm always interested in the history of genre, in the history of music terminology, how things are created. Someday I'll show with you, I actually bought the original Cream magazine where the term heavy metal was invented. I'm fascinated by the influence that music critics can actually have to shape music. I think it's not always bad. I think it can be good. As an example, I think the term grunge did actually help that music to develop and to concentrate and to become something. So I'm not Dave Marsh, I'm not Lester Bangs, I'm never going to be able to have this kind of influence. But if you'd allow me to imagine that I do have this influence, I think we can name this moment in post-punk. It's of the 20s. It's of right now. I know that it started in the teens, but I think right now, if I would call it something, maybe the post-20s music or 20 post. That's what I'd call it. 20 post music. As in post-punk music from the 2020s. I'm talking Proto-Martyr, The Witches, Dry Cleaning, Fontaine's DC, Idols, Black Country New Road, Mush, and now Squid. I think that it is a fair thing to do to put them together. Now, they're not all from England, most of them are from England, but I don't think that this actually has to be a British-centered movement. I don't think this is some kind of British invasion that Americans like to sell. I think it's really just more of a change in the way that guitar-led music is going. So let me try to offer a general description of 20 post music, as I would describe it if I were a famous music critic and not a French professor who's in the middle of preparing his final exams for the semester. It's an exciting time. So very guitar-led, but guitar-led in a way that avoids power chords, in a way that avoids traditional chords, kind of weird chords, or most often no chords at all. Single notes being played, often multiple guitars interacting with each other, kind of droning. Very clear guitars, okay? Like the one I have behind me. Very Fender guitar. Very little distortion, very little hard, very little masculine, stereotypical rock and roll guitar music, okay? It's much more interesting, it's much more intellectual, more heady. There's usually some complicating factor to the music. Either it's the instrumentation, the time signatures, these very clean guitars, very complicated music, very intellectually stimulating music, with vocals which are almost always spoken word adjacent. So the talent of the vocalist is downplayed, while the nerdiness or the cynical charisma is sort of overplayed. I would say instead of seeing it as, Morrissey or Johnny Rotten as a basis, more like Jarvis Cocker as the kind of spiritual leader of this kind of vocals, right? Where it's, you can sing, but you don't all the time, and there's a kind of charisma there. Lyrically, throughout all of these, all those bands I said, all of these things work for all those bands. Themes of alienation, apocalyptic or vaguely apocalyptic in nature. Lots of questioning of the nature of truth, like the interaction between truth and lies, state truth and state lies, the place of the artist in society, the value of capitalism, the valuelessness of capitalism, and the value of objectivism. I would say all of these 20 post bands do something where it seems as though they play with surrealism, but it's actually absurdism. It's more like our current world is so bizarre, so let's just make something that can be kind of silly. So I've given this sort of description that I think could go to all those bands that I mentioned, but I think they go very well as a description of Squid, and I think Squid may be one of the best examples. One of the best examples of all those things. All those things that I just said apply to Squid and more. And it really is an amazing album. I'm very happy that I think 7 or 8 people requested it, which is a lot for this channel. If I'm going to get specific about Squid, really superb musicianship, guitar. The complicating factor in here is often horns. The way the horns are used in this album is just transcendently amazing. It's sparing, it's brought in at unexpected times. Very often on this album, you will have staccato notes broken up with legato, so staccato like tap, 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 and legato, and the horns will be used in that way in the guitar and the synthesizer. The whole thing is produced with a deceptive complexity. Like most of my favorite albums, you can listen to it in the background. I live with the music. I don't just sit the headphones on. I live with it. I drive my daughter to school listening to it. I go to the gym. I grade exams while my wife cooks calamari, and I listen to the music, and you can have it on the background, or you can listen to it carefully and hear all these great production decisions. I guess it's by the same guy who does Fontaine's DC, Dan Carey. That's not what DC stands for, right? It stands for Dublin City. But that's a funny coincidence. Okay. And there's also a lot of discordance put in here. A lot of like aggravating sounds, a lot of sort of avant-garde noise being put in. One thing I'd say probably the band they're most similar to that I've reviewed is Black Country New Road, primarily because there's like a sort of weight and a sense that the artists who are making it are saying the sentence, "This is important," while they're making it. And that sounds like a mockery, but it's not. I think it's good. I think it's good in both cases. I don't think that they're carbon copies or anything, but I think they both seem to have this sense, am I going to say the sentence? They both appear to have a sense of destiny, that they're like doing something very important, epoch-defining, great music that people are going to hear and just love. One detail about this band, which I think matters, but it's hard to figure out exactly how, is that the lead singer is also the drummer. I am a drummer. That's my favorite instrument to play. When I was in a band, I was a drummer. But there's not a lot of great drummers who also sing. You have a lot of bad ones. We're talking Don Henley, Phil Collins. I'm sorry, not a fan. Mike, of Mike and the Mechanics. I assume it's Mike plays drums. Then you have the good examples, Buddy Miles with the Band of Gypsies, and Ringo, of course, and Levon Helm is the sort of greatest one here. Here it's sort of not at all, he's not like any of those. And I think what's interesting is this music is so technical. It's hard to define. I'm not going to give it a genre besides my post-20 idea or my 20-post idea, If you look at Genius, some people call it math rock or kraut rock. I don't think it's any of that, but it's interesting because he's playing a lot of complicated rhythms, a lot of non-traditional rhythms, and it sounds a lot more like, not quite prog, but maybe again prog adjacent. It makes me, the weird thing, and this is nothing to do with the band, okay? This is just what happens in my brain. This band reminds me enough of Black Country New Road that when I listen to Squid, I get this single line from Black Country New Road stuck in my head. Leave Kanye out of this. Like, I don't understand why that one part of that one song from them gets stuck in my head. I don't know. The Dr. and Mrs. Sky, my wife, she is into neuroscience. Maybe she can explain why why when I hear the name, the band Squid, do I start singing a line from another band? Very bizarre. There's so many wonderful moments on this album that you just have to listen to because the production is so adventurous and interesting. There's one thing, like I just did once, where one of the times I listened, I just listened for the examples of when horns and synthesizers go together. Because quite often they will choose to use a synthesizer sound that sounds like the horns themselves. And the thing about Calamari is there's something so satisfying about the sort of weird rubbery texture. And I realized that was my calamari moment. That was where I felt that joy of eating calamari, is when those horns and the synthesizers just go together, and it has that ineffable, otherworldly, like you're eating an alien feeling. So at some point in the album, during my review, I am going to tell you the most calamari moment of Squid. Maybe my wife's right. Maybe you don't watch the channel for my stupid food metaphors. Or maybe I just found some way to eat calamari, which is always a good thing to do. Much like those other bands, you know, the guitarist seems to hate chords. There's multiple guitarists, but they all seem to not really be interested in chords. It's mostly individual notes playing against each other, almost. Well, no, it's not almost. It is. It's polyphony. It's a very polyphonous band. A lot of different people doing different things. It all matches together somehow. I guess in that way we could call it Baroque if we wanted to. But I don't know. Usually when people call music Baroque, it's because they don't like it and they think it's complicated. It's because they think it has too many notes. So, but I do think it's Baroque because it uses polyphony quite well, and even at times, maybe even polyrhythms, but it's hard to define those sometimes. Lyrically, according to the singer, Ollie Judge, it's all about an imaginary cityscape. The lyrics are very much in fitting with all of the post-20 stuff, vaguely anti-capitalist, vaguely post-apocalyptic. It's very much centered on the themes of a writer named Anna Kavan. This is according to Lyric Genius. I don't know her work. I've never read a book by her. This is usually the part in the video where I show you that I have a book and I've read it and I explain it. But I'm not able to do that. Maybe I will by the next time they release an album. But the idea behind the album is kind of emphasized on the cover as well. Just the idea of a bright green field. That's one of her stories that she wrote. The idea of a bright green field is like it's swallowing somebody up. Like this looks like a body that's decomposing in the field, but as you can see, it's sort of made up of kind of a cityscape. So it seems to be part of this semi-post-apocalyptic feel of human society maybe being replaced by something natural, and that maybe being better. Lyrically, it's very sort of, you know, like a lot of fixed sentences repeated over and over again. I think that might be an influence of the fact that it's a drummer and it's extremely hard to play drums and sing at the same time. So there's one song where he just says, I play my part, and like it becomes rhythmic, like the voice actually becomes rhythmic. I would like to go an entire video about a British rock group and not bring up Radiohead, but I don't think it's fair. I think I have to. I think very clearly this whole post-20 movement, I think even though it might not ever cite Radiohead as an influence, the way that Radiohead brought these themes of being disaffected, the intelligence of their music, the intertextual nature of their music, talking about things outside, and just the intelligence, just the insane intelligence and the vulnerability as being the greatest strength of the music, right? So again, not like Pulp, you know, or sort of like a swagger, right? This whole thing is basically swaggerless. Okay, I'm 13 minutes into the review, and I still haven't even talked to you about one particular song. And what I do, if you've never seen the channel, is I pick one song as my homework, right? One chapter of the album to read, and I want you to listen to it as a good example. But the whole album is so strong. Every song is great. No song does exactly the same thing. So I'm just going to give you one of my favorites. I think it shows it. I'll put a link to it up there. It's called Global Groove. I picked this because I think it has the best production and it has the best lyrics. Now it starts off with this really cool 4-on-the-floor drum, you know, doom, 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 doom. And all these lyrics are all about this concept of the global groove, right? Which usually, you know, you think of, I don't know, D-Light or some kind of British house music, or, you know, the Venga Boys, you know, all dancing to a global groove. But in this case, the idea of a global groove seems to be more like a global rut. And it seems to be the rut that's brought about by capitalism, that's brought about by apparently the 24-hour news cycle, like by globalism itself. That this global groove is actually something not great. And it's just keep tapping away at the global groove. Lyrics like, what's your favorite war on TV? According to Lyric Genius, he's very influenced by the art of Namjoon Paik, the video artist from Korea. I was in Korea and I saw an exhibit of his, and it's one of the best things I've ever seen. It was like a tower of televisions all playing. And the thing that's repeated over and over again is so sick and tired of dancing to the global groove. So it's a great bait and switch with a title like Global Groove and then having it be like that. But the thing is, the production on this just gets insane. There's this point where he yells, Global Groove, you know, and he's yelling. And then there's just this individual notes on different instruments played in different channels. Bam, bam, boom, bam, boom, right? Like all over the place. Each note is so clear, is so piercing, is just right. It's a little bit discordant, you know? And then these notes keep playing, and then these horns come in. So all these staccato, like, you know, I am a robot, Devo drummer, you know, all that stuff's going on. Well, this beautiful horns comes in. Eventually it seems to cut out, and it's just these horns playing, these gentle drums, and like just like takes out the snare, so it's just a tom, and plays it, and then has this weird kind of megaphone thing to take you out through the song. The whole song is this like long, exhausting, edifying experience. Global Groove. I'm not going to take you through the rest of the album track by track. I'll go a little bit quicker from here. Resolution Square opens up the album. Avant-garde opening, just kind of an aggravating sound. And my wife, when she first heard it, said, "This is so annoying. I hate this music." And then the next track, GSK, started, and she said, "I like this. You should buy this album." So it's very much in keeping. I will end up probably getting this album. What's funny is I saw the title of this, GSK, and I think a lot about business. I think a lot about companies. When I was in high school, I boycotted every company that was owned by a tobacco company. So that meant I thought a lot about businesses and how they were intertwined. So I saw the letters GSK, and I thought, that's funny. That's like GlaxoSmithKline, the pharmaceutical company. But it turns out that's what it's about. So very rarely does that pan out. I guess this is sort of written where he sees this headquarters, and he has this beautiful line as the sun sets on the GlaxoKline. And the way that he says it, it makes it sound like the GlaxoKline is a part of the landscape. And isn't it? You know, I grew up in Massachusetts, right near the Raytheon factory. Is that not part of my landscape? You know, I live in New York, and whenever you drive by Syracuse, New York, you see the Raytheon factory. Is that not, can we not say by the Raytheon? You know, these monumental buildings filled with people doing good, evil, whatever, doing whatever it is that happens in the global groove. And the way he's able to describe it, it really does tie in well with the theme of that cover, of the earth and people, and the way that the natural and the unnatural and the human-made all go together. It's just great. You know, the lyrics are pretty standard, you know, businessman stuff. But then just like percussion as well is another thing this album does really well. The percussion just is so well used all the way throughout. So there's a bit like a wood block and a bass, and then the horns come in, and then there's this like super aggressive like talking and not singing. Just so much happens with this music, especially this part where there's like horns and arpeggiated synthesizers happening at the same time. The instrumental break, the guitar starts to get hard, and then by the end, these horns are now descending and everything's going crazy. Just wonderful. The next track is called Narrator. Not one of my favorite tracks on the album, despite the fact it features somebody whose middle name is my first name, Martha Skye Murphy. But kind of like a funk bass, kind of speaking. This is I play my part. It's a little bit long, it's 8 minutes. It feels to me maybe they're trying too hard to be interesting by having it be this long. It's not terrible, it's a good song. But at one point, what I do like is that Martha Murphy like just starts screaming at one point and sounds like she's being killed. And I like the kind of tension that's built up there. Next track is called Boy Racers. A lot of emphasis on these single guitar lines interacting. This is maybe the most generic 20-post song on here. That's not taking off, is it? Post-punk 2020s band sound. Still, though, there's these great like hidden horns. And then I made a realization about this singer, which I feel bad. I feel bad because I think it might have the power to sort of ruin some of his songs for people. listen to Boy Racer, listen to All You Judge, and compare it to American comedian John Mulaney. There's a weird, like, oh, Boy Racer, there's a weird similarity in their cadence. At least I see it. Do you see it? That's one of the things you can put in the comments, and you can subscribe and all that stuff. That's what you get for subscribing. You get me playing with my Star Wars toys, eating squid, and making weird references which may not work. This is great, though. What I do like about this is I like the longness of this song. The vocoder gets kind of odd. There's like a vocoder sound, but it's the odd and threatening, like, monster vocoder. It's not like the cool, funky ones, like these cool swirling synths, and it gets kind of epic. One sort of big difference is, this album is just epic after epic after epic after epic, whereas this doesn't always feel epic. It feels like instead of going towards something more epic, it goes towards something a little bit more bizarre, a little bit more offbeat. What I like about Boy Racer is the way it leads right into Paddling, one of my favorite songs. Almost idiotech drumming from Radiohead. It's pretty amazing that he's singing while playing at the same time. The bass comes in. It's kind of a playful song, it seems. Like, it's all about, like, obedience, all about patience and control, dig holes like a mole. Again, this sort of questioning capitalism, questioning labor, objective value. But the instrument, it feels to me that maybe the point of this album is just to have space for instrumental breaks. Like, you can't just release an album of all instrumental breaks. So we have to do something else. So come up with lyrics, come up with a song, but every instrumental break on this album is like the good part in a kung fu movie, You know how kung fu movies and pornography are the same? Like they have parts in between the parts that everyone watches them for. Godzilla movies the same way. But you just want to see the thing that you're there for. The instrumental break is the Godzilla blowing up Tokyo of each one of these songs. That's the best part. And here it's got this amazing bit with percussion and with tremolo guitar. A cool kind of unexpected change, like a bell goes in before it just keeps repeating the lines, and just really precise rhythms. Another voice kind of leads into the end part, just saying, "Don't push me in." I suppose don't push me into the pool that I'm digging. Then the track Documentary Filmmaker, and this reminds me a lot, I don't know if this is intentional or if it's secondhand influence, but it reminds me a lot of the work of Philip Glass, the 20th century composer. I guess he's still alive, so the 20th and 21st century composer, who did a lot of work with rhythms and polyrhythms and polyphony and kind of disembodied, slightly robotic sounding yet melodic music. That kind of stuff. This feels to me a little bit like that, but what's nice is that all these things that are happening, like I'm looking at my notes so much because there's so many things to write about this song. Guitar, synths, and horns all together, staccato, and then the horns seem to grow out of the broken notes. I don't know why I'm getting so poetic in my notes. I wrote these notes on the elliptical today at the YMCA. So for some reason I wrote horns seem to grow out of the broken notes, but I think it makes sense. And this song has the Squid moment. It's that moment where the horns come in against the synthesizers and with the guitar. It's that makes it feel that really satisfying yet slightly odd sensation that's the same thing you have when eating good calamari. I didn't think about this. Calamari is very chewy. So this bit definitely doesn't work. My wife was right. You don't need this stuff. Okay. So there's my metaphor about Squid. This is the moment, but just give it a shot. Listen to this song. Listen to this moment. The instrumental breakdown, it's just so great. Lyrics are good here too. The changes in seasons and yelling about it snowing in February. Again, sort of that like saying things that are very simple in a way that sounds kind of profound. Eggs are much cheaper after Easter. And it ends with kind of an ambient sound. They do a lot of that where they start and they end in a different place. 2010 is maybe the most overtly Radiohead sounding song with kind of a droning arpeggiated guitar chords in the beginning, very strong bass. Here he's speaking. Throughout the album, it seems as though clarity is not the most important thing. Clarity of what he's saying or singing. So he has two different voices going on at the same time, which is It's a little bit similar to something Velvet Underground used to do a lot. But also on this song, we have him sort of actually singing for the first time. So he's like singing. I wonder if he can sing more than he does. Then we have the song "The Flyover," which is it just sounds like horns tuning before an orchestra. But this is a reminder of the ambitions of this album to be an album. Importance. We can't take out the flyover. If we take out the flyover, the whole thing falls apart. Yeah. So help me God, right? It does need that to give this the sense of importance and of weight. Peel Street is the next song, kind of upbeat and fun, almost like video game sounds here. It builds a lot with the voice and the churning guitars and just a great bridge. Again, where like it's bass and like a tom part with a ride cymbal. And then there's like this weird like synthesizer, like harpsichord synthesizer sound. I don't know. I'm not going to eat more, but it's still that satisfying, complex, unique sound that is achieved many times throughout this album. And let me repeat that, I'm comparing this band to a lot of other bands. But just like you can compare Nirvana to Soundgarden, but you would never actually confuse them, right? Even if they're theoretically the same genre, you couldn't possibly say they're the same thing. That's what I'd say here. This is in the very post-apocalyptic vein. I guess this is based on a different book by Anna Kavan called Ice, which is fine. I'm happy. I'm happy that they have these sort of intertextual moments. It seems as though when you have a band that's this good at being musicians, it can be hard to find things to sing about. I had the same problem with a lot of these bands. Then we have Global Groove, which I've already discussed in some detail. And then Pamphlets is the ending track. And that's a song that sounds as though the band was playing together and having fun playing in a new time signature. This feels to me that my favorite kind of bands to see in concert are bands where you know that every member really matters. You couldn't possibly swap out one guy for another or one woman for another, I mean, The Who are a good example of that. Led Zeppelin are a good example of that. The aforementioned several times, Radiohead is a good example of that. Like you couldn't possibly replace any members. And part of the way that bands get like that is when they play together so much and they have a kind of groove together. They're in sync in a way that you can't replicate. This song, Pamphlets, says to me, this is a band that likes to play together, that likes goofing around. The lyrics feel like temp lyrics. That's why I don't go outside. I mean, they're fine lyrics, but they're repeated a lot. But this feels to me like a band that loves playing together. And that's a really special thing. Because often bands don't love playing together. They're just kind of thrown together, or they just kind of get together and they have some success, or the record company and the bass player gets fired for doing heroin, or whatever it is, right? Whatever these things are that happen. It's great to hear a band really play together. And the funny thing is, this is one of the few songs I was able to find a performance of them on YouTube, and it was amazing. Like, you have to watch this. It confirmed everything that I suspected about them playing live, where like one guy's like on the floor playing with like sound effects, and like then he'll like pick up a horn and play, and the drummer's singing and the drummer's playing, and all these guitar players. And much like I guessed, all Fender, everything Fender. The importance of Fender is Fender has a very clean sound. It's not for people who are trying to use their guitar as a replacement for their phallus, like waving it around with pointy edges and turgidity, right? It's very much like a delicate sound. And the whole band is all clean, clear channel Fender, able to do that together. I'm not sponsored by Fender, and they probably wouldn't like that description of it, or maybe they would. And it was just great to see. I do have a dream. So like, how like the Clash and the Sex Pistols toured together? Wouldn't it be awesome if some of these British bands toured together? Like if Black Country New Road, Fontaine's DC, and Squid played together? You're trying to tell me they couldn't? you know, play the Madison Square Garden or whatever. Citibank Arena, who cares? You know, like I think there could really be something, you know, like getting all these bands together who have this kind of energy and this interest and this ability to reach people and really this ability to reflect this moment that we're in. I could see that whenever COVID ends as being like this great legendary tour, you know, like a tour that everyone goes, oh my God, you remember that 20 post tour? Oh my God, that 20 post tour. Oh, that was so cool. Remember when we started calling it 20 Post? All right, there you go. So there's my review. Thank you all for your suggestion. I'm also a scientist, and I can tell you, black coffee and day-old calamari goes pretty well together. You wouldn't think it does, but it goes just fine. All right, well, then for the entire Moncal fleet, there's the camera.